Okay, so it is the 17th of December and I am doing some, probably not all, but some of the challenges for the letters, 13 letters of Christmas that has been put together by Beth over at Book Nest and Lauren from Fiction Tea on Instagram. For all the information about this challenge, I will link their channel / Instagram in the description below. You should go and check them out. But yes, today is S in the first S in Christmas and it stands for sustainable. So I decided for sustainable I was going to talk about books that I reread, because when you reread you don't have to go and buy a new book. You are using a resource you already have. So that's what I've decided to do for sustainable. I'm actually doing the reread tag. I was tagged to do this by Connor over at Connor's Library Corner. You should go and check him out as well. He's fantastic. I have actually not thought about answers to this question, so it's going to be very off the cuff, which I don't normally do for tags, but that's how I'm doing it today. And I do have my phone with me, so if I'm looking down all the time or looking at the phone all the time, that's why. This is how I'm going to figure out the questions. So let's get started. Question number 1. Let's assume you do reread if you're doing this tag. So where do you sit on the rereading scale from almost never to all the time? I'm probably pretty firmly in the middle. And that's basically because recently I've been trying to read new books. That's my thing, and particularly given that I am now doing booktube and I am now trying to be a bit more aware of what I'm reading. So in the middle is the answer. Nice and short. Question number 2 is, has that changed over your reading life? And that's part of the reason why I left question 1 so simply. Yes, it has changed over my reading life. When I was younger, probably late teens, early 20s, I went through a phase where I basically just reread. I mean, obviously not entirely, because I would read a book, but then I would find out how much I loved it, and then I would reread that book and reread that book and reread that book. I did do a lot of rereading as a younger teenager, which is why I basically can't reread The Lord of the Rings, because I've read it so many times. Lately, in the last probably 5 years or so, that's really changed, because I started trying to branch out more with my reading. I started trying to, just to read more and branch out more. So it has changed, particularly in the last 5 years or so. Question number 3, when do you reread? Immediately after finishing a book, or not till years later, or when the mood strikes? When the mood strikes. I tend not to want to reread it immediately after reading it for the first time, unless I absolutely thought it was just amazing. But even then, I'll probably give it a month or two, just so that my memory of all the intricate little details isn't completely still in the book, so that I can still enjoy it. I mean, not that I wouldn't enjoy it if I reread a book that I loved, but I'm more likely to enjoy it if I have a little bit of space. So yeah, but when the mood strikes, it just depends on what mood I'm in and what I fancy doing. I don't have a kind of routine in terms of like every year at Halloween I read this book, for example, but there are a few books that I probably reread fairly regularly, and then other books that I might have reread a couple of times. Question 4, why do you reread books? Because I like to. Yeah, because I like to, because when I find a book that I really enjoy, it's like an old friend that I like to go back to, a good experience that I like to go back to. Yeah, so you know, when you find a book that you really love, it feels like you found a friend. When you have found a friend, you want to keep in contact with that friend, so you want to see them again and again, and that's kind of how I feel about rereading. You want to see that friend that you want to touch base with and connect with, so you reread a book. Number 5, how do you reread a book? Faster, slower, just the best bits? For the most part, I'm going to say none. I just reread like I would any book. That's not 100% true, because there are books that I, like The Lord of the Rings that I mentioned before, and The Chronicles of Narnia, that I've read so many times that I almost don't want to completely reread it from start to finish, so I will skip around in those books. But for the most part, I will read a book as though it were for the first time. Well, I've read a book from start to finish and just, read it at the pace that I read it at, if that makes sense. Okay, so question number 6. Who or what do you reread? More specifically, which authors or genres or individual books? Okay, so more specifically, I have reread the Elderling series by Robin Hobb 2 or 3 times. I feel like I might be due a reread. I have reread, well, as I just mentioned, Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia. That was when I was a kid though. I've reread Pride and Prejudice quite a few times. I've reread Emma quite a few times, and I've reread Sense and Sensibility, which are my 3 favourite Austens, quite a few times. I've reread Anne of Green Gables quite a few times. I have reread the first few books of the Laurie R. King, Mary Russell series quite a few times. I've read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quite a few times. I've read Good Omens quite a few times. I have read Neverwhere a couple of times. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. There are some Discworld books that I have read a few times and others that I've read just the once, and some that I haven't read, but I'm always up for reading a Discworld book, so I will get around to reading all of the Discworld books at some point in my life. There are some that I definitely go back to. They tend to be favourites, and I have mentioned most of these in my favourites videos that you will have seen all of them now, because I uploaded my favourite classics recently as well. So you'll have seen all of my favourites. So yeah, that would be no surprise that I've read all of the books I'm mentioning a few times. But yeah, books that I love, books that are favourites, I tend to reread, and that's often how I know that they're favourites, if I want to keep rereading them. Question 7, is there a book that you found better when you reread it? This is a really interesting question. I honestly don't know that I've ever really thought about that before. I feel like there are a lot of books that I get new things out of when I reread them that maybe I didn't notice before or didn't strike me before, or that, I noticed, but I didn't see them as important than the first time or second time or whatever. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever thought a book was better after having reread it, but I definitely have experienced discovering new things or learning new things or seeing it slightly differently the second or third time I've read it. Question 8, and one that was worse. So goes with question 7, which obviously was, is there a book you thought was better the second time, or upon a reread, is there a book you thought was worse? And again, no, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Short and sweet. Question 9, I think I've already answered. Which one book have you reread most times? The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have read The Lord of the Rings, and I'm counting the 3 books as one for this question, what it was intended as anyway. I read it when I was very young and unable to read those sorts of books to myself, and I have reread it multiple times throughout my life. At some point I would like to reread it again because I do love it, but at the moment I kind of feel like maybe, well, for quite a long time I've been feeling like I can't go back to Lord of the Rings and reread it because of how well I know it, because I basically don't reread it, I just know what's happening. I don't know if that makes sense. Does anyone else feel that way? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Lord of the Rings is the answer to that question. And that is the end of the tag. So that was nice and short and sweet. So you've probably seen on some of my videos recently, I've been saying, if you watched this far, leave me this emoji. There seems to be a bit of a thing going on in BookTube. I don't know about other YouTube videos, but certainly in BookTube, where people are saying, not everyone wants to comment, so leave an emoji to show that you were here if you want people to know that you were here. So that's kind of what I've been getting at, but then other people say if you got this far, leave an emoji. But anyway, either way, leave an emoji of a favourite, leave your favourite emoji. If you would like to make a comment but you don't really want to make a comment. If you want to make a comment, please feel free. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know what your answers are. How do you feel about rereading? Do you do it? Do you not do it? Are there specific books you reread and other books you don't? etc. All of the information for all of my Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram, etc. are in the description below. So if you'd like to connect with me on those other platforms, please do so. And yeah, that's the end of this video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you later.